Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for...
If you say debacle and I say debacle, unspun.
What?
Debacle, like this museum. What a debacle.
Oh, okay.
Is that right? Debacle? No, debacle. What a debacle.
Debacle. 173 episodes in, George, and it's the first one where I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. It is a bit of a debacle, though, because we start this week's podcast where we started last week's podcast with just like this much more. My fingers are almost touching so close together. This much more information with the full...
I thought you were squishing my head there for a minute there.
Yeah, I am. Like
Kids in the Hall reference there.
Squish your head.
Which I was watching last night.
Royal BC.
Yes.
Were you? You were watching Kids in the Hall last night?
I watched a bit of the new one, and then I was watching the documentary about them, which was on HBO. It was quite interesting.
I love that. Very cool.
I was a big fan. Anyways, yes, this is the fast ferries of the new NDP government. Aren't we excited about this? This museum,
I couldn't be more disappointed in the explanation or lack thereof. The business plan or lack thereof. I just did the Mike Smith show. It's Mike Smith's birthday today. If you're watching it on the Thursday when we first post UnSpun podcast, happy birthday, Mike. I filled in for him and I was talking to Keith about this. And Keith is like, the Royal BC Museum is 200 meters away from where I'm sitting right now in my office. Mm-hmm. It's a very central part of Victoria. It's like the aquarium or science world here in Vancouver, to give that reference of sort of how it's visited. I mean, those of us who have been there, we've seen the woolly mammoth. You know, we catch a starfish, all the things. Like it needs to be updated for sure. And there's 7 million pieces in the museum, I guess.
It's a museum. I mean, how much updating do you need? It's a place where you talk about the history. I mean, I don't know how fancy that. It's not like an art gallery. But anyways, go ahead.
But I would challenge that spending $789 million on a museum, whether it's for the entire province or whatever, that's in Victoria. So if somebody from anywhere else in British Columbia wants to go, they have to spend a couple of $100 to get there and cash in on their tax-paying dollars being spent. Yeah. It's almost $1 billion and 8 years, George. 8 years.
I know business plan. And you look at the only example we have is the Vancouver Art Gallery revival, and the city put some very strict rules on this. You know, they have to raise all this money before they even start digging a hole. I think the estimate is $280 million. I believe it's been a while since I looked at those numbers. This is the Vancouver Art Gallery. There was going to be on a new site that the city was contributing, at least half that site. The province gave them $50 million a long time ago. So this is a brand new state-of-the-art building in downtown Vancouver, and it's coming in the third of what this museum in Victoria is coming in. It makes no sense, and it makes no sense because they have made no sense of it, because there's no information about.
There's no answers.
I don't understand what kind of meeting. You know, there's the biggest thing I can think of in the city of Vancouver when I was there, and they still haven't done it, which was the new city hall, the new city hall campus. The city actually leases a lot of property around the city, and they could bring in. We have a lot of land on City Hall that we own that we could consolidate and put our staff into these buildings. And we worked out a deal that we could probably work with a partner, and it wouldn't cost money, it would save money. But we had a lot of conversations about this, and we brought it to council, and it wasn't that controversial. It was very early days, but we showed how much it cost, what the opportunities might be, what it might look like, who the partners could be, what the buildings might look like, how it might work. Okay, and people were like, okay, that sounds interesting. And then we go back, and now you come up with a bigger plan for it. That's how government, especially when you're talking about government-related buildings that are being funded by government, should be an open and transparent process. Especially a building that's, beloved, and of course with school groups, you're saying closed for 8 years. I mean, how many years? That's a whole generation.
That's a generation of kids. Yeah, it's insane.
So they did say they're going to move it to the airport or something, didn't they? Or something to a hangar.
What they say? They're going to have some pieces, not the woolly mammoth, but some pieces traveling around, which I guess will add to the cost. I mean,
don't they do that already? Anyways,
I just don't understand. And the thing that I want to plunk in here that I actually landed at the feet of Keith Waldry just as we were running out of time, because the phone's lit up, like as you as you would.
Yes.
If it's about this particular piece of property, right? The property's tight. The only way to go is up. It's got asbestos in the building. It's da-da-da-da. Build it somewhere else. Build it somewhere. Build 5 of them. Build 5 of them for $200 million each. Let that sink in. We could have 5 BC museums. We could have museums that celebrate individual nations within this province. Like, let's take off the shackles of how it's always been done and have some ingenuity as part of this program. But the process isn't transparent, like so many things in government that people are sick and tired of. I am definitely really sick and tired of.
Yes, they could build it somewhere else, but that hasn't been presented an idea. I mean, there wasn't even a conversation. I don't know Victoria well enough. If there's a piece of land, maybe, I don't know, but it would be good to know, and for them to say there isn't, and this is why. But I'm guessing there's got to be some. I mean, there's the helicopter pads past all the hotels. There's the giant wharf, the pier. That's, the boats you could probably integrate it there. I'm sure the Port of Victoria would love to be involved in that process, and would drive traffic, all the way along the water. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. But
they should have asked you, George.
I've now done more research probably than the Ministry
exactly
and the Premier have done on this, and I'm just thinking out of my head.
Oh my God!
It's just gold though. And it was when Kevin Falcon's first week as leader of the opposition. What a gift! Pure gold for him. Not just a gift that will keep on giving. It's the fast ferries, as I said, of this.
It's the fast ferries. You couple that with the tunnel. Sorry.
Yes.
Phone rang. My stepdad's calling me. My stepdad doesn't keep track of my schedule, and I tell him.
It's not ringing. I can't hear about
that. Okay, good. Okay. The Massey Tunnel and the museum. Live. Yeah, we're good. We're good. It's just, I keep coming back to how someone in whatever layer of government, maybe it's Melanie Mark, maybe it's somebody told Melanie Mark she had to do this. I don't know. But somebody thought, you know what, we're going to press ahead with this. Even though it's not even going to start for 4 years, now is the time. Whose idea was that? Because that person should be fired because they're really, really shitty at their job.
Well, you can't get through this whole
pandemic.
The whole caucus must have, the whole caucus must have known about it.
Healthcare crisis, long-term crisis, school crisis, businesses in crisis,
affordability, homelessness,
opioids. Museum. We should spend $1 billion on the museum. No, that's not.
I feel bad for the management of the museum. They're like, we were kind of excited about this, but oh god, it wasn't. We kind of. It's just a nightmare from beginning to end. I don't see any way out of this. I think I said this last week that they'll bail. They'll have to bail on this. There's no way. There's no political will for this, and why would you? It's just really what happens with most governments after they've been in and they start to get a bit cocky and the arrogance sets in and they lose touch with reality and as a typical you don't understand why this will be good for you.
You don't understand how important this is to this community. This community is the province. Your community is back. All.
Oh really? How? Don't show me the numbers.
Are we gonna see that money?
Is it?
Is it going to come back into general revenue? How's that going
to? No, capital projects are important, 100%. We don't want to just say that you shouldn't be building arts organizations or bridges or tunnels or, you have to invest in your province, of course. And of course, it's likely that the Royal BC Museum does need to be rebuilt. Okay, great.
No question. I don't question that at all.
Process, business plan, partnerships, engaging people to get excited about it. People were pointing to, what about the Trade and Convention Center when they expanded that? There was a process, and it was part of the City of Vancouver's whole strategy for the waterfront, and we built a beautiful park there with a roof with bees on it, and
the Olympics.
They had the Olympics coming, and there's no hook for this except. I guess they could argue the Olympics are coming, but I don't think is it going to be built by the time 2030 comes? And can you imagine this government doesn't ever do anything on budget. So it's going to be 40% higher than 700 million. It'll be $1.1 billion.
My number one issue with what this is all about, really my sole two. One, where's the plan? Explain it to me. And two,
show us the money.
Somewhere in that plan better explain why it's almost as expensive to build one museum as it is to do the entire Broadway plan. Like, it's crazy to think. It bothers me that a government might believe that citizens, taxpayers, the people who fund what they do, will be quiet and just say, "You're right. A museum should cost $789 million. I'm never getting there. I'm never getting there." It's they need to, and if it's because it's the plot of land and the state of the building and whatever, build it somewhere else. Just build it somewhere else. Condemn that building. What's it called when you remediate? When you get the asbestos out of it, whatever you got to do for that, and then create a community space from it that doesn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars. I got to go to other politics because I've got a couple of topics I want to get to, but I could go on about this.
There's more stuff out there.
Before we go to municipal politics, where there's a lot to chew on, I want to talk a bit about the Trudeau visit. First and foremost, marking the anniversary of 215 in Kamloops. Him being at the Powwow Arbor for that anniversary, I think, speaks to the flaw in his plan on what was the first day of Truth and Reconciliation, where he didn't go there. He went to Tofino instead. Not having a lot of pomp and circumstance ahead of him showing up on that anniversary, I think was a good call by whoever is in his comms or whoever's planning strategy, whatever. He did that. That's great. Then he came here, and I'm worried about the level of divisiveness and tension and really hate speech. Like the amount of racism that was hurled at this event in Surrey was astounding, so much so that, we've seen Trudeau wearing bulletproof vests, and we've seen Trudeau get rocks thrown at him, and now he had to leave this event and do it virtually because protesters showed up and were hurling racial slurs at the South Asian community who had gathered to hear the Prime Minister speak. And I just feel it's like...
Was it white people doing this, or against? So was this something to do with the flag people, all that stuff? Is that what this was?
I don't know if the group's been identified, but certainly it was.
Well, you can't blame Trudeau for not showing up. Clearly, his CSIS and his intelligence told him not to go. There must be a real threat. That's really scary. That's not very Canadian.
No.
You've got I think back to Chrétien. I like salt on my steak. Or I like pepper on my steak. I like pepper on my steak. Salt. I like pepper on my steak. And he got that guy with the neck. But and there were a lot of threats at that point. That was during all the protests regarding the environment, I think, and all that stuff going on. Whatever years that was, the late 90s. So that's worrying. I mean, that's not cool. And if we get that stage as a country, God.
Yeah, there was a report that was released. I actually interviewed one of the primaries of the report, primary authors, who his name was Vincent Rigby, who used to be an intelligence advisor to the Prime Minister's office. He's now stepped away from politics, but he, along with other CSIS directors and academics and what have you, did a report that was just recently published. You can find it if you do a quick Google search if you're listening right now. It's a fascinating report to read. It's about the backslide of democracy in the United States and how Canada needs to start to be forward thinking on some of the things that we are not immune to here. And no, we should not be afraid and alarm bells and all that about what's going on in the US in terms of Canada versus the United States in that regard. But we also can't be complacent in the idea that everything that's happening down there is just happening down there. They're our closest ally. They're often our protector, but they're also suffering from a great divisive, almost civil war style. And if the presidency after Joe Biden in 2024, if it swings back to a more right wing, even if it's not Trump, but it is somebody like that right wing, like there could be some significant problems in the United States that we need to prepare for. And that's what this report is about.
I don't think Americans want Canada to be a sanctuary either. Like in Handmaid's Tale, if you've watched it or read it, Canada is a safety zone for a lot of these Americans who are being persecuted. It's there is a goal potentially of these people to disrupt things up here to ensure that we are not placed for people to escape to, being so conveniently located. So that's worrying because we know that they are infiltrating through funding to disrupt our culture, through our media, through our social media. They are, and whoever these people are behind all this, I don't know, but this is definitely a concern, and we have to be careful. But yeah, what do you do when you're a politician and you're threatened? It's not easy. People, it's in my experience and having done, been in politics and have had threats against me and all of us at some couple few points when I was there. You kind of have to decide. It's an individual decision. And I generally was less risk. I was more risk willing, I guess, than some of the councillors.
Yeah. Well, I was not in politics, but I am in media and am currently continuing to bring charges, criminal harassment charges against an individual who decided to abuse me, scare me, whatever you want to say, discredit me, and go way, way, way too far. And that's why he is officially charged by the Crown with 5 counts of criminal harassment. We're continuing down that path. So I can only imagine, because who the hell am I? I don't even have a job in the media. This is my job in the media. This is you, and this is how dangerous I am. I talk about local and municipal
sponsorship
politics.
Is available. George@communications.com if you'd like to provide us with some funding. Since our
UnSpunpodcast.com, man. We got room to advertise for you. UnSpun. At George _Affleck, at George_Affleck on Twitter, at Jody Vance on Twitter. Follow along. Lots of cool news to come as well on those platforms. Let's talk about municipal, because we are counting down to your birthday, George. October 15th, 2022 is George's birthday.
And it's also birthday I've ever had.
Ever. Election day, municipal election day.
Yes.
Is it my imagination, or did the current mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy-Stewart, just re-announce again another time?
Shocking first for a politician to re-announce something that was already announced twice, I believe, before.
At least
the partnership at the site that's overseen by the Squamish Nation. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, to be honest. But it's that land that's right beside off the Brar Bridge.
Used to be the Molson brewery space there. That's going to be built up.
Bridge, all that area. Yeah. So it's huge development. We heard all about it. Lots of beautiful pictures. A couple of years ago, I think now. He re-announced this and had some very fancy graphics. I saw one shot. I was shout out to, is it Traffic Trish? I don't know if you follow Trish Jewison on Twitter, but you should, because her photos, she does the traffic very global, and she does photos while she's up there, and they're amazing photos. I always like, can I use this one for my Facebook page? But so it was way up in this shot. It's a drone shot. I don't know what it was, and it was their backdrop. But when they're flying through the sky, how lovely! I mean, it's a major project. It's really important. It's important for the Squamish Nation. It's when I was in council, there's a whole complicated world underneath the ground on that site related to water and sewer and the relationship between the city and negotiating all that. That's huge. And when I was there, we did negotiate a short period of time for what to do with that while we were waiting for this project to be announced. So it's, they have to pay for access to our systems, and that's not cheap. But they get to do whatever they want on
that land, though. This is the thing that I think is very important. Where other developers would not get approved what has been approved, because this is Squamish Nation territory. They are 100%, but they do have to tie into city works and utilities, obviously.
You can't just
but they don't have to have
without water and sewer attached to it. So you have to be careful what you can do.
Permitting process, like how many parking spots do you need for every unit, and that's not necessary here, which is interesting. And I want to talk a little bit about permitting, because this is the story that I didn't get to last week. A girlfriend of mine.
We were trying to remember what it was before. Okay, yes, go. Yes, go.
So my friend Sally Pateman, who owned De Niro's restaurant in Yaletown, and then Robert De Niro famously said, "You can't use my name; it's trademarked, whatever." And Sally's like, "Okay, well, successful, great spot down in Yaletown," and had to go through the court system, whatever, cost her a ton. Exhausting. We graduated together from high school. I love Sally. And then she named it Section 3, because that's the section of the code that she was sued to change the name. She was like, fine, Section 3 it is. Anyways, that, it
was very successful. 20 years or so. I mean, my office used to be across the street from it, so we went there a lot.
Fantastic.
And it was very successful.
So she sold that space and then went to Chinatown and was really ethically wanting to add and procure what the history of the building was. And she opened a restaurant
not liking
called,
how this is going. I'm getting a feeling. I'm getting a feeling.
Sai Wu is the restaurant, and
yes.
they delayed her literally to the death of her business with permitting and business license and liquor license and everything. And it was supposed to happen. And then somebody would come in, and bylaw officer would look at whatever permitting, whatever, and they'd be like, "Yeah, no, it's not quite. We're gonna need those drawings again." And she's like, "You mean the drawings I gave to you? Like the original drawings that you actually have that I can't get again because you." And she's like, if you don't approve this now, I lose my business. Like that's how bad it got for her. So she's now sold. She actually lost that restaurant in COVID on top of everything else. And another restaurateur friend of hers, who you'll probably be hearing more about because nobody was picking it up on the regular news because news is so crazy right now. But it's unbelievable. They're trying to open their 4th location. They've got the space. They're paying their rent, their lease, whatever. And the delay after delay after delay, they applied for their business license, everything in order. They already have other businesses, but they aren't in enough, I guess, with the people to get the license. Just be, here.
What do you mean
you know what you're doing. Well, how do
like
other
staff?
businesses? I don't think staff. I mean, there's something else at play here that somehow, some way, the bigger box places and spaces.
I'll tell you,
let me just finish my story because this is how she feels. This is how she feels because they said to her, "Everything's here. Yeah, all of this is done. It's going to take 8 to 12 weeks for us to process that." She's like, "Okay, but I can't get my liquor license until this is done." And then she goes over to the liquor board where she already has other licenses, and they're like 8 to 12 months where she has to continue paying her rent and all of the insurance and everything. She's like, "We can't open."
Where was the location for the
Kitsilano, First and Cypress.
Yeah, the city's brutal on liquor licenses, as you may know. We don't like giving them out. We don't like even giving them the rubber stamp or any stamp for that matter. I think there are many things going on here from my experience at City Hall, and
Tell me.
Things, one is you go to, you have multiple people you'd have to talk to, and they don't necessarily always talk to each other. And you go to one person, and they'll give you their view, and you go to another person, they'll give you a different view. Very inconsistent. I've shared this thing many, many times on Twitter. It was from 2018. It was Gilly
this
Kelly.
This thing that looked like this?
Overlay, all these
like a blurry screen.
Yeah. Conflict, and they haven't even dug into that yet. I do know that City Hall, that the new city manager I have heard is prioritized speed in all of what they do. And has all the management team committing to this process of how can we speed up everything. That should be our priority. It's not going to talk about price and all these.
Can they run for mayor?
Speed. Yeah, well, I think it's just, and then the whole liquor licensing. Vancouver's like a little old lady when it comes to liquor licenses. As far as they're very, very old fashioned in the city. Park board again, like, oh my gosh, they're allowing drinking in David Lamb Park now, and I'm like, David Lamb Park. There's a school there and a playground and tennis courts. Why is it not George Waymer Park right next door where there's no school and it's a nicer park?
About the beach.
Well, and it's just like, why is this even a conversation? You and I have talked about this for since COVID started, and even before that, because I tried to push forward on that stuff way back. This sort of nanny state on alcohol, and that goes to liquor license as well. I mean, the city. There's this catch-22, of course, the province and the federal and the city government. They one has to get the other to get the other. It's like and that's why a lot of people pay big money for an existing license, so they just have to go in there and get it. So
that's why we don't have live music venues. That's why we don't have more live.
You can't get a liquor
getting
license.
A live music venue liquor license.
There's a moratorium downtown. It's a unicorn. You can't get a patio officially unless they've changed it. They did a brief that with a COVID, they allowed patios, but for the last several years, patios were forbidden in downtown. There was a moratorium on patios. Anywhere downtown. And this is prior to sitting outside, and a moratorium on liquor licenses downtown. The moratorium, I don't know if they've officially lifted it, but they certainly, with COVID, they allowed the patio stuff and the drinking stuff. And guess what didn't happen? The world didn't fall apart. Anyway, I feel sorry for it because if you run a business, people don't understand that you have to sit there. You rent a space. You have to pay that rent while you're doing. You might get some give from the landlord on renovations. They might spread that over 10 years or whatever. but you still have to pay that monthly amount with no money coming in. It's a huge investment. Restaurant, I don't know why anybody would go into the restaurant business. It's so risky, so scary. Your profit margins are, if lucky, 3 to 5%.
If you're lucky.
It's
and I want to go back to the patio
industry.
idea, because you've said from the beginning, like the plan, what that should happen in the places that have now become war zones because there's no eyeballs on the street, is that Granville Entertainment District, if that was set up like a piazza, like a plaza in Europe, like if there were both sides of the road, like make it one lane for transit, or move transit one block over and make it pedestrian, or whatever it is, but have patios all the way down.
Stages. And live stages.
And stages and people and eyeballs.
And also allow height on the sides. Right now, there's I think it's 3-story or max on new buildings, and any older buildings.
I don't understand.
Grandfather. So you have no density on there, which is fine because I don't want people living on Granville Street. But we could put offices, art studios, whatever above Granville Street to get people sort of more eyeballs and more people
coming in and out of there.
If the street had patios, if it had live music, if it had nicer sidewalks instead of stupid sidewalks with stupid seats and the stupid bike racks all getting in the way and trees that are dying. It's a mess. It's like a joke. In fact, there was that headline. It's a mess down here. When I had a headline just before I left politics in the province. It's like a big front page, and I was down there, and there was these people who saw me and they were yelling at me. There were some people who said, "All right," and others were like, "You suck." So it's a contentious issue.
Don't suck.
But, yeah, well,
you don't suck, but you know what does suck, in my opinion, the graffiti. I get it. There's a place and a space for murals and true art, and when art means something. But this tagging everywhere, it's an epidemic in this town right now. And it's growing by the day. Like Chinatown, my heart is broken. I love Chinatown.
It's terrible.
I love it.
And it's everywhere, though. My alley, where I live, there's
totally. All of it, everywhere. Kitsilano. It's going. I guess it has to hit Shaughnessy Dunbar. It has to hit up there before anybody's.
I'm sure it's happening on fences there. You have to be tenacious about getting rid of it. I know, but you have to be tenacious about getting rid of it, and somebody has to take the charge of that. Right now, it's residents. I saw Mike Klassen. If you know Mike, he used to have
I do.
citykaucus.com and does a lot of punditry as well.
Yep.
He was out there. He does this every year. Goes out and does a neighborhood cleanup. That's fine, but it's not something that really should be the responsibility of people, and to have to go out there and do what should be the building owner's job and the city's job.
We should have a city street team that graffiti is the only thing they take care of all day. It's like a pothole team. It's like the team that shores up the flooded areas, right?
John Cooper and the MPA team will solve it all because they announced their slate this week, and they're focused on crime and the basics. That's their big thing. It was interesting. I didn't go, but
where was that? It was on the long weekend, right? Right.
Yeah, it was on Monday night, Tuesday night. So they announced their slate. They're running 6 for council. You and I have talked about this. I have a sense, that they're running 6 people. ABC, which is Ken Sims, running 6. Team's going to run 6. Mark Marison's party, whatever, Progress Vancouver, is probably going to run 6. Those are all the center right parties. They're all going to run 6 people. It's going to, then you
split the vote in 1,000 different ways, and then Kennedy-Stewart stays in place.
Run 3.
You'll win. What about when you said Ken Sim? Have we heard about the Broadway plan from him yet?
No, he's getting it. Well, he also did some tweet this week about housing. How he's going to solve housing for young people in Vancouver and they make it affordable. And that was it. He just tweeted that. And so I tweeted saying, please. And I think I've had, 200 people responding to this now. It's one of my more popular tweets. I retweeted his tweet, which was him tweeting. I said, seriously, anybody run for mayor, please don't make promises, i.e. solving homelessness or stopping climate change. You can't do that as a city. You can have a little bit to do with it, but let's get real here. You're not going to solve affordability as a mayor of Vancouver. You're not. No. Ken Sim. You're not. Anybody that promises that is like Gregor Robertson promising he's going to solve homelessness. It is absolutely a scam for the voter, and please don't fall for it. Demand the facts. Say, how are you going to do that? Tell me how you're going to do that.
It brings us right back to our top story.
That a mayor can do.
Right. It brings us back to our top story. It's all fine and dandy if you're going to tell us you're going to build a museum, but then you tell us the price of it without telling us why that price. How are you going to, Yet we all want to solve the affordability crisis, particularly for our young people who are struggling to find the work that has the pay that's equitable to the cost of living. Like, we all want that. But you can't make a promise without actually saying how you plan to get there. Because if you have the answer to that equation, tell us now.
I don't even understand what their timing is. I don't understand anything about that thing. I understand why right now there are all these politicians in cities making promises about things they can't do. But why would they make? Why this in Victoria? It makes no sense. There's no common sense to that at all. But you get used to civic politicians right now making promises that you say without a doubt that they cannot keep, and call them out on it. And make sure when you go to that voting booth, you think about all these candidates. As you've said many times, do your research, because this election, certainly in Vancouver and I think Surrey as well, you got to make some tough decisions about who you're going to have in that council and who's going to be the mayor, because it is going to be such a chaotic election in those two cities. The people in those communities are really going to have to do their work if they care about the communities. And I'm really worried about Vancouver. I'm not very hopeful about this next election for us. And
I'm really worried, George. And we're going to say this, I think, every week until the election on October 15th, because you have to vote. Everybody has to vote. Get out and vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain, period. Don't vote for the familiar name. Know who you're voting for and don't vote for anybody else. You do not have to fill out the entire ballot. You just need to put the people down that you've done the research on, because there are familiar names. I'm not going to get into specifics here, but there are familiar names that maybe we're on.
If you can find 10 great people, vote for 10 great people in Vancouver.
Who's going to run for council now, hoping that somebody's going to recognize their name and go, oh, I remember that guy. I don't know who he is, though, but I'll vote for him. Don't do that.
I'll tell you who he was.
Go ahead.
No, it's like
exactly. We'll tell you next week.
Against him needs to focus on that. I think
let's do that.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now. If John Cooper wants to be the mayor of Vancouver, he's got to stop worrying about Kennedy-Stewart. He's got to start worrying about Ken Sim and Colleen Hardwick. That's the campaign that he should be running if I was his advisor, not Kennedy-Stewart. That's not the problem. Nobody voting for Kennedy-Stewart is going to vote for John Cooper. But everybody voting for potentially Ken Sim will not vote for John. So you got to focus your energy, John Cooper, and that goes for Ken Sim. Same advice. Yeah, Kennedy-Stewart has nothing to do with your election campaign. This is going to be a campaign on the right side for mayor, and then Kennedy-Stewart will just kind of sit back and watch the show, and hopefully they'll all separate the vote. But if do your work, choose the best candidate, vote for that candidate, listen to what they're saying. Call them to task when they say stuff that's BS, and make a good decision. And that's what I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to be a tough election.
It's going to be a tough election, but between now and October 15th, which is Municipal Election Day, where you are going to vote, all of you are, and it is George's birthday. Between now and then, we're going to talk about specifically the people and what they are campaigning on, so you can make an informed decision. So like and subscribe at unspunpodcast.com. Make sure you sign up to get our podcast whenever we post them, because we're going to endeavor to continue. We're on episode 173 and we're pressing forward, George.
Yay. Bye-bye.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah.